Hello and welcome to the Final Whistle with me, Daniel Waterson, looking back at Hibs' 1-0 win against St Mirren in Paisley. Coming up, James Delaney and I discuss the match, Neil Lennon speaks with Hibs TV, and we have the post-match thoughts of David Gray. But first, let's remind ourselves of all the action with Hibs TV's Cliff Pike and John Stevens.
Stevie Mallon's come across to take the corner on this near side. It'll be right-footed in swinging. A little bit of drizzle in the air here in Paisley. Mallon whips the ball way towards the back post. Gray climbs in the back. It's in the back of the nets. David Gray, right at the back post. He nodded it down. It bounced up off the ground, and I wasn't sure there, John, looking at the angle we've got, whether it actually bounced into the roof of the net or onto the roof of the net, but it is into the roof of the net. And after 14 minutes, Hibs have the lead here. It's St Mirren 0, Hibs 1. Trademark David Gray header at the back post.
James, it's been a strange week. We play Aberdeen off the pitch, create enough chances to win about 6 games, go out on penalties. Today, pretty safe to say we weren't at our best, but the important thing is we've grounded a 1-0 win.
I mean, you have to win ugly sometimes, and that certainly wasn't pretty today, but it's 3 points that you would have taken if you'd been offered it at the start of the game. I think St Mirren, were not particularly impressive in the first half. Didn't create very much at all. They had one chance that they kind of squandered. By a similar token, we didn't create a huge amount, but possibly could have had another 2 goals. In the end, we go in 1-0 at half time. I thought St Mirren were much better in the second half, but we ground it out, and that's all you can sort of really ask for. We found out earlier this season how difficult it is to go to grounds like this in Livingston, the promoted teams, and how dangerous they can be, and how desperate they are for points to secure their league position as soon as possible. So you take sort of a nice a dirty 1-0 win here if you're offered it.
There was something that I remember us talking about on the season review podcast the last year, was that in the 18 games we played against bottom 6 teams last year, we only lost 3 of them. Under previous managers' successful regimes, fans would be coming away saying, even today we'd be saying we'd have lost that under such and such, we'd have lost that under such and such. So another kind of positive as of the many there's been under Neil Lennon, that it's a team that can kind of ground out wins.
Yeah, it's one of those where if we are like today 1-0 up going into the final 5-10 minutes, you can see us holding out and getting the result, where maybe even if we're 1 or 2-0 up under other managers, it would be, God, we really need a 3rd goal here to properly kill this, or we really need a 4th goal or a 5th goal, or any amount. I mean, we were 6-2 up against Motherwell and drew 6-0.
Yeah.
So I know we're going back a wee bit there in that result, but yeah, it's one of those where you know what Neil Lennon brings. He brings that kind of sort of steely determination to the squad. He brings that kind of will to win and will to avoid defeat. And I think that was a perfect example of it today. Even with a few of our key players going off with knocks and being missing with slight injuries, we were still able to put a team on the pitch that was going to get a result, and, like I say, possibly could have 1 or 2 more goals in that game as well. But if we win every game 1-0 this season, I certainly won't be that bothered.
Yeah, we're second in the league without. I still think we're still to really click. It's unfortunate that we seem to be, just as it looks like it's come together, somebody will maybe miss out through injury. Today was a really strong starting lineup, but we've got Hamilton Accies next week at Easter Road. We'd expect to win that, and then all of a sudden you're getting into the international break with Jamie McLaren due back, and it's a dangerous prospect that this is a Hibs team that's still too click, you reckon? Yeah,
and I mean, you said it's the end of that game there. Played 3 games in the past 7 days, not conceded a goal. Scored 4. Admittedly, Tuesday was disappointing to go out in that manner. Penalties is always a difficult way to lose any game, but the fact that we are, even in the first half last week, I don't think we were good at all. I didn't think we created really anything. Today we're not spectacular in any sort of real capacity on the pitch, but we're still sort of grounding that result. and that is without Martin Boyle, who's was sort of precautionary measure. Jamie McLaren's injured, the two key players for us. Even during the game, Thomas Agipong starts and comes off with what looks like a knock. David Gray comes off with looks like a knock. Obviously I think he got a bit of a knock last week as well at Dundee. So yeah, you're right. It is going to. We said it is going to take time for everybody to get on the wavelength of the squad, particularly the new signings. But at the same time, it's going to take a little bit of time for everybody to be up to 100%, up to full fitness. I thought Mark Milligan today was really impressive, given that he played 120 minutes in midweek and then lasted the full 90 today. For a guy who's 33?
Yep.
Which, I mean, in fairness, isn't old, but certainly is getting up there in terms of a footballing career. To do that 3.5 hours of football in the space of a few days is no mean feat, particularly at this level. It's good to see that guys like Milligan and Stevie Mallon are starting to look like they've been part of the squad for a while now. I still think we've got more to come from the likes of Emerson Heineman and even Thomas Akipon to an extent, who I think the fans have already pretty quickly taken to their hearts. But yeah, it's a good win in terms of confidence building and in terms of team building for the squad, as well as making sure we're picking up 3 points in games we should be picking up.
Yeah, so to take this one back to the beginning, the two changes from the team that went out to the Aberdeen in the Cup. Agipong and Darryl Horgan came in for Martin Boyle, Paul Hanlon. Hibs go back to the 4-3-3 kind of /4-5-1 formation, and it was a really quiet opening first 10-15 minutes or so. I think there's one Thomas Agipong cross that Darryl Horgan gets ahead onto. It's not really much of a chance, and the first real talking point is the goal itself. Stevie Mallon's corner. David Gray has no one near him, no one within about 2 yards of him at the back post. Downward header, 1-0 Hibs. Yeah, it's something that I'm sure Aaron Kearney will not be particularly pleased about watching that back. There was nobody within 2 or 3 yards of David Gray, and for a guy like Stevie Mallon swinging a corner, he's always very dangerous. And David Gray's 5th goal this season, which is now officially his most prominent goal scoring season for Hibs. Which fantastic for him. Good downward header, but yeah, you're right. I mean, that was pretty much the only thing that happened in the first 15 minutes, and it was very similar to Dundee last week. Difference is we actually managed to score. Last week it was 30 minutes before anything was created. But it's important to get the first goal in these sort of types of games, because it makes St Mirren come out and play a bit more. It kind of eases the pressure on us to go out and get that first goal. And good header from David Gray. Hope he gets 10 this season, to be honest, because that'd be quite fun, wouldn't it? It was well, we figured out that he scored up until this season. He scored 8 goals in his career, so the target is to surpass his entire career tally.
He's now 3 away from it, and we've got about 30 games of the season to go at least.
And he's got Stevie Mallon taking corners to him now. So
he could, to be honest, he could have had a hat-trick in the first half as well. He had one that he absolutely smashes it, and Craig Sampson makes a really good save, but.
That's it. So Hibs are 1-0 up. St Mirren responds fairly quickly. They win a corner, it's cleared. There's a moment where Stevie Mallon there's a shot on from about 25 yards, very uncharacteristically passes it to Agipong. The chance kind of fritters away. Mallon has one over the bar, Agipong has one just wide, and then St Mirren have probably their biggest chance of the game. It's Paul McGinn, who's left completely free, angles sitting perfectly, all the time in the world, and without knowing too much about John's brothers, I'm guessing that was the wrong McGinn that fell to.
I think the right McGinn's playing in Birmingham, so that's a bit of an issue. But yeah, he didn't look particularly comfortable even as he was shaping up to hit it, and he almost kind of lobs it over the bar. You'd be expecting somebody to absolutely smash that home, but yeah, that was the only real scare that St Mirren gave us in the first half. It was the only real time that they got a yard in the box, and I suppose we're slightly fortunate that it's fallen to their right back rather than their centre forward.
Yep, and then I think from there, the Gray chance that you've talked about, Sampson puts it wide from the corner. Heineman has space and time at the edge of the box, hits it first time and it skews wide, and then just about a minute or two before half time, Hibs possibly with the worst miss we'll see this season, in a Hibs shirt at least. Canberry miskicks a shot from a corner, spins up, Darryl Horgan free header 3-4 yards out, just gets no power in it. He just needs to put it either side to Samson and it's 2-0.
Well, you saw a miss-hit Canberry shot. I saw a wonderful FIFA Street-esque flick over his head. The one thing you can say is it doesn't look like there's a lot of pace on the ball, so he's probably having to work quite hard and work the net muscles quite hard to direct it. But yeah, I mean, he heads it straight at Craig Samson from 2 yards out, and I mean, I think even Craig Samson was surprised by the complete lack of power that he gets in the header. You know, it's easy to look back now and say that's fair enough, it doesn't matter, we got the 3 points anyway. But I suspect if St Mirren had grabbed an equaliser, would be looking back at that one a little bit frustrated. And I mean, Darryl Horgan will know himself, it was a fantastic opportunity to get on the score sheet, get his first league goal for us. He scored in the league. Yeah, he scored in the cup.
Ross County in the cup. He scored in the league. He scored against Livingston.
He did score against Livingston.
I erase that from my memories, but
well, yeah, and you've brought it all flooding back there, so in proving me wrong. No, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, he'll know himself that it's one that he should put away.
So that takes us up to half time. The 4-3-3 for me, I thought Canberra seemed a little isolated at times, but I can understand why we played it. But what are your views on the changes of shape? Are you a two up front guy? Or?
Well, I mean, me and Rick said last week on so after the game that it's important for Canberra to be scoring goals when McLaren's not there and when he's not got a strike partner, and he gets it. Today he did. He looked a little bit isolated. He looked a little bit sort of lonely up front, and it was one of those where you kind of thought, well, is it worth sticking on Ollie Shaw just so he has somebody up there? At the same time, I don't think the two of them linked up particularly well on Tuesday night, even though they didn't play together for a huge amount of time during the game. I think he needs somebody, if he's playing up front, he needs somebody to be playing just off. And last season they had Scott Allen a few times playing just off, which I think worked really well. I think we have Mallon and Hindman playing slightly too far back at the moment. It basically leaves this huge gap in between the striker and the midfield. Having said that, there's a few times he linked up relatively well with Thomas Agupong, and he linked up a few times with Darryl Horgan. You just wonder if we're missing that central player in that attacking sort of 3 or 4 to allow Canberra to play up front on his own. But like I say, it's important for him to get goals when McLaren's not there, when he is playing up front on his own. He got one last week. It didn't quite happen for him this week. So you know, it's one of those where it isn't going to be every week that he's putting the ball in the back of the net. At the moment, it might take him a little while to get used to playing that lone striker role, but we saw how quickly he adapted to Scottish football in general last season, so it would be a million miles away from saying it could be the same again.
More from James and I shortly, but let's hear from Neil Lennon speaking with Hibs TV.
In terms of performances, it wasn't the same as we had against Aberdeen, but sometimes it's not how you win, it's about winning.
I think you have to look at the exertions of Tuesday night, and obviously we've had to make personnel changes due to injury, with Boyler being out and Paul Hanlon. I think it's a brilliant win, and we knew St Mirren would be fresh and spirited, and they made a game of it, a real good game of the second half. But we've only ourselves to blame, Cliff, because we keep the door open for teams. We should have been 2-0 up comfortably at half time and in control of the game, but the longer the game's 1-0, we keep in the opposition in it, and then we miss some good chances on the counter attack as well. But all in all, it's another clean sheet and a fantastic win.
That's the important thing again. If you're not firing on all cylinders up front, you need your guys at the back to be on their game, and they were today.
Well, yeah, we've been conceding goals early on the season, but that's 3 clean sheets in a row now, so again it's down to the goalkeeper. I thought Ambrose again was very, very good. Milligan had another very good game, and Stephen Whittaker, when he came on, was really, really solid. He made some great interceptions when we needed to. But going forward, our selection of pass, our decision making is still not right, and we've had ample opportunity to put the game to bed today.
St Mirren, though, as you said, spirited performance. They're down at the bottom of the league, but they're probably a better side than that shows.
Yeah, they've got a lift from a new manager, that bounce, and I didn't think there was much between the teams in the second half. I thought there was a bit of a gulf in the first half. I thought we were excellent, but you could see also mentally the players tiring. They've had 2 hours and penalties on Tuesday. a couple of days recovery and then another very, very tough game. So I've got to be very, very happy with what I'm seeing at the minute.
You mentioned Mark Milligan. I thought he was outstanding there again today. He's unflappable in the midfield. He doesn't panic. He gets the ball, he just keeps it moving forward, and that's the kind of thing you need, someone with a calm head in these situations.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's no coincidence he's come into the team. We're unbeaten and keeping clean sheets. I think he's a tremendous asset, and it's been a difficult week for him because he's not played much football, and then he's been thrown into the deep end and he's come through it with flying colours, and once we get him recovered and fresher, probably even get better performances from him. Absolutely delighted with him, and my kind of player.
And we move forward next week to a game against Hamilton Easter Road, game before the international break. Last 3 games, you said clean sheets, 9 points out of 9. Next week we'll be looking to take the 3 points there if we can, and it puts us into the international break in a good position.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hamilton are, a consistent Premiership team. They're a good win against St Mirren last week, and they get results at important times. So we can't take it lightly, and we won't. But we are looking up the table. It's just into second place, and obviously there's a game tomorrow that might change things a little bit. But second place at this stage of the season, we've got to be very, very pleased with that.
As you said, all we can do is keep winning games, not worry about what everybody else does.
No, we haven't. People keep asking me, but I'm not bothered. I'm working on, change here, transition, style of football. The football is still very, very good, but we've had a difficult week in terms of the amount of volume of games and the amount of effort the players have put in. We haven't got the biggest of squads, but they're giving me everything at the minute, which is all I can ask.
Paul Hanlon and Martin Boyle missed out today. Just little niggly knocks, just common sense, keep them out. You've got a decent squad there to choose from.
Well, Martin had a scan, and we knew there was a bit of bone bruising in there and a bit of swelling, so it was no chance of him playing today. Maybe on the bench, but I didn't want to take that chance either. And he's an important player for us. Could have done with him today at times, and obviously Paul as well. Had the dead leg from the Aberdeen, so only 25%. Work in his thigh, so it was probably too soon for him. But hopefully both of them will be fit for next week.
Second half starts. I think in the opening couple of minutes, Thomas Agipong has a shot blocked. Simeon Jackson, who was tricky, I thought, given that he only signed 48 hours ago, he surpassed all expectations, I'm sure, from a St Mirren point of view. He does well to get away from Ambrose, and Adam Bogdan makes possibly his only save of the match, and he does really well to get down low to block the shot.
And one thing you can say about St Mirren is if they were playing in the Premier League in about 2009, they'd have a hell of a team shaping up. It is a good save from Adam Bogdan, who I think is kind of, we said he maybe had a few kind of early jitters early in his Hibs career. Goal against Aston that maybe he should have done slightly better with. There's a few more instances after that, but I think his performance away in Greece we're sort of starting to see the best of him. I think he's now kind of settled. We said during the game, is now when there is a time where he's coming out of his goal to try and clear the ball, you're not getting quite the same nerves and quite the same kind of holding your breath moment that you might have got a couple of weeks ago. So I think we are starting to see the best of him, and it's probably come at a good time from his point of view as well, with Offer Marciano hopefully nearing some kind of fitness. It'll be a good fight for the gloves, I think, and I'm sure both will be up for it, and Adam Bogdan certainly did his chances for being our number one, no harm, with good performance again today.
Yeah, and I think from the resulting corner it was Mark Milligan get a really vital clearance, and then from there it just kind of felt like one-way traffic without ever being like a siege of chance after chance. Malin has an effort that goes harmlessly wide. My favourite moment of the match was Stephen McGinn's running technique, chasing after Thomas Agipong at one point.
Gets it from, I think, is the best way to put that. I think he said in his Villa interview is chasing helicopters. I think that's probably the best way to describe Stephen McGinn's as well. I mean, it looked like Thomas Agipong was barely moving, and he was about 3 or 4 yards ahead of him at all times. So
can't fault the effort.
You can't fault the effort, and you need players tracking back like that, but it really is something to see live and that close as well.
So Hibs make their changes at that point, and I think St Mirren were pressing so much that we had to kind of tighten up midfield, give Canberra a bit of support up front. So we get Shaw on for Hindman, Whittaker comes on for Gray. We changed shape, but I'm not really sure what to. There was maybe about 5 or 10 minutes of real kind of uncertainty. Ambrose and Lennon were gesturing at each other. One was gesturing with the number 3, one was gesturing the number 4, and that was probably the rockiest 10-15 minutes. And once Hibs settled down after that, they seen it out relatively comfortably. But
it's good that you've cleared up the gestures that Neil Lennon and Effie Ambrose were making to each other. It was one of those where, and it kind of happened towards the end of the game as well. It looks like Marvin Bartley's about to come on, and then they make a change of the change, and Slivka comes on for Thomas Agipong. It was like kind of, it hadn't properly been communicated to the back line as well. Effie Ambrose in particular was obviously struggling with it, and he wasn't quite sure, but at the same time he was the one who was kind of holding everybody together, and sort of saying, right, hang on a second, let's get in a shape here. And to be fair, I think once we did, we kind of limited St Mirren really to a couple of dangerous crosses into the box and a couple of half decent through balls that never quite reached their target. But you do wonder kind of what the message was from the bench at that stage, and why it maybe took slightly longer to communicate it. In the end, it doesn't matter, but it's one of those again where maybe if it had ended up in a St Mirren equaliser, it would have been something that had been closer looked at. But again, I thought Ryan Porteous, even though he gets booked today for not very much, and I think there were plenty of players
not very much in a Porteous sense.
Well, yeah, exactly. On the Ryan Porteous scale of yellow cards, that was a 0, to be honest. But you're right, it's there's a lot of bookings today that maybe on another day wouldn't have been a booking, another day wouldn't even have been a foul. Defenders know their basic job, and basic job is to keep the ball out of our net. We did that today. I don't think we can have too many complaints, but yeah, you're right, there did seem to be a little bit of period of miscommunication between the bench and the players on the pitch.
Yeah, and I think once that all gets settled, like we've already said, Hibs see it out relatively comfortably. Ollie Shaw has half a chance, he heads over. There's one more chance for St Mirren where McPherson's put through from a ball over the top, he clips it wide, and I think at that point you kind of thought, it's not happening for St Mirren today. Yeah,
it looked close, but again we were quite far away from it, so I'm not sure how close it was. But yeah, it was that kind of moment where he sort of takes the touch and it takes an age to actually go wide, although to be fair to Adam Bogdan, he seemed relatively confident it was going wide. But yeah, like I say, St Mirren had a couple of half decent balls into the box and a couple of half decent through balls, and they did look dangerous. It's probably one where they have to start games a little bit quicker. Admittedly, I don't watch them every week, so I don't know if that's just this week they didn't start particularly well, but yeah, defensively again, same as last week, I thought we looked really solid. There's plenty of criticism levelled against us after the Livingston game, and a lot of it was warranted, but I think defensively we've responded really well to that, especially having Paul Hanlon out again today. It's Effie Ambrose and Ryan Porteous, which is a combination that's not played together in a 2 particularly often. And I thought they looked relatively solid. We never really looked like we were going to concede a goal. And it's good to have that sort of depth and able to keep clean sheets with different partnerships, and even when we're missing likes of Paul Hanlon, we're still turning in good performances.
Yeah, and not only that, I think the only other thing that I've got for the rest of that, Agipong comes off with a knock, Slivka comes on, Hibs see it out, but there was a moment with about 2 minutes left on the clock where Ambrose gets the ball in his own half, 2 St Mirren players running at him, and that composure and skill is why everyone should love Effie Ambrose. He just rinsed those 2 defenders, and it was incredible.
My least favourite phrase in football is, if Messi did that, you'd be talking about it for weeks. But I can't really think of an equivalent. If another defender, if a top defender did that, if Darren McGregor did that, a top flight game, people would be retweeting that gif on Twitter and looking at that for days after it. It's like, in a game where St Mirren are chasing the game with I think 2 minutes left on the clock, 2 St Mirren players coming towards him, you can put it out the park, kick it over the stand, can try and win a throw off the opposition. He sends them both half rail on the MA. It's ridiculous. It's just amazing composure from FA. And we were talking earlier about his debut here for Hibs, and he was the best player, or the best Hibs player on the pitch that night. What was a relatively poor performance, but that was just that was fantastic. And if we can have that FA Ambrose every week, which to be fair, I think for the majority of his Hibs career we have, he's always fun to watch, and long may it continue.
So next up is Hamilton Accies coming Easter Road. I think we've seen this St Mirren team lose their 3-0 last week at New Douglas Park. Hamilton followed that up by losing to what was officially the worst team in Europe this week on current form, Dundee. So who knows what to expect from a side that are very much a thorn in our sides.
Yeah, I mean, we played them at a very similar stage last season and thought we were going to be comfortable winners and made them look like Barcelona. They're certainly not to be taken lightly, and performance last week against, did they play St Mirren last week?
They beat St
Mirren last week. I thought they looked good. I thought they had a couple of really good players in that team. Obviously in the likes of Doug Emery and Danny McKinnon, they've got two players who are robust in midfield, so I think we're going to have to be strong in midfield. But at the same time, it's one of those games that you're looking at on paper. We should really be winning without too much difficulty. The game's not played on paper. We still need to turn up and put in a performance, and certainly can't take them lightly after what happened last season. But I'm sure Neil Lennon will have them well drilled for that eventuality.
And now we can hear from David Gray talking to Cliff.
David, that was a tough battle today, but the boys done well to come through with a 1-0 victory after a tough slog against Aberdeen in midweek.
Yeah, I think the most important thing was the 3 points today. I know we can definitely play better, especially second half. But the most important thing was the 3 points today after a long hard week as well. Three big games during the week, so it's a good result.
And it was your goal that separated the sides. You're making a bit of thing with these headers at the back post these days.
No, it's good. Obviously another one came off for the training game. We've done that one before, so it's Stevie's delivery on the money, and I'm delighted to see it going.
From the point of view of the game today, we didn't create anywhere near as many chances as we did against Aberdeen. But that said, when you need your defenders to stand tall, they did. We were very solid at the back today.
Yeah, that's a pleasing thing for me, especially as a defender. It's a clean sheet for the lads, which is the most important thing. Gives us a platform to go and we always know we can go and score goals and create chances. And I think we were a bit disappointed not to be a couple up by half time. We missed a couple of good chances in the first half, but the longer it stays 1-0, St Mirren were always going to have a spell, and I thought the lads at the back weathered it well.
I think we have to remember that obviously St Mirren, had a tough time with managerial changes, results not going their way. At home, they were always going to come out and have a go at us. Their performance today probably suggested that they're a better side than their league position shows. Definitely,
we always knew it was going to be a real tough game. We've been here a few times now, and it's always been a tough challenge. And obviously off the back of Tuesday night as well, it was always going to be a difficult game. We fully prepared for that. But the most important thing was the 3 points. The performance wasn't as good as Tuesday night. I thought we were great on Tuesday night, and probably better against Dundee. But that's a sign of a good side to get the 3 points when we maybe weren't at our best, which is great.
We've had a lot of games recently, and 120 minutes against Aberdeen. St Mirren out there fresh today, not having played in midweek. People maybe don't realise how much that takes out of players. That extra half hour.
Definitely that, and just the emotions of the game. Going all the way to penalties and dealing with the defeat in the manner we did. I thought, as I say, we were great value for the win on Tuesday night, so it was a tough one to take, but it's credit to the lads that we were able to dust ourselves down and get ourselves the result today, and against a good St Mirren side that Celtic came here and struggled, so we knew it was going to be a tough game, but it's credit for the lads to get the job done.
And as you said, as a defender, a clean sheet today, clean sheet against Aberdeen, clean sheet against Dundee last week, 3 clean sheets in a row. That breeds confidence at the back as well.
Definitely, I think that's been of recent weeks. The start of the season especially, we knew we were conceding too many goals, and I think I was one of the ones that kept saying it. We need to tighten up at the back, we knew that, and thankfully we've done that. Obviously 3 clean sheets is great, because we know we've got so much strength and power going forward. We'll always create chances, and if we can keep the door shut at the back, we'll win far more games than we'll lose, that's for sure.
9 points out of 9 from the last 3 league games. tough one coming up against next week against Hamilton. At this stage last season they beat us 3-1 at Easter Road, so we'll know what to expect there. But if we can get a decent result in that game, it sends us into the international break in a good position.
Definitely, that's got to be the aim now. Fully expect a tough game. You know, Hamilton done that to us a couple of times last season. They're always tough opponents, hard to play against. But the most important thing would be to try and get the result, because, as you say, you're going into the break then, and it's a long 2 weeks. If you don't get the right result, you know, you've got to come back into training on a bit of a downer. Whereas if we can finish with another 3 points, we can go away. The boys who've played a lot of minutes can get a good rest under them and come back and prepare for the Celtic game after that, which will be a great game as well.
So that'll do us for this week's episode. The extended highlights from Saturday are now available, with the rest of this season's games as well as a huge archive of other classics all on Hibs TV. Next up for us is Hamilton Accies at Easter Road on Saturday. Tickets now available online for that one, and the whole match will be broadcast for international subscribers on Hibs TV. Until next time, my thanks to James Delaney as always for joining me. Thank you for listening, and join us next time on The Final Whistle.